And now getting to the what can we do? We see artificial intelligence is coming at warp speed, and it will destroy and is already destroying a lot of creative jobs that we've learned to like over the past decades or centuries, from writing books to painting to creating speeches to everything. People use it for everything, and the problem is, same with the internet search, now even worse, that you need an offline knowledge to use the online tools. You need to understand it's a tool, it's not replacing anything. And just like people used to Google and take the answers for granted or believe what people say on social media as the news and facts, the AI is also it can be a very useful tool, it can be a very dangerous tool. I think we need to be sure to put a lot of emphasis on that when we educate our children, when we educate our workforces, and how to use these tools. It also will tell us how we have to reshape our labor market in the future to make sure we're creating also more jobs that cannot be replaced that easily. Maybe we see another boom in craftsmanship. We will have more plumbers and electricians that everyone always tries to find desperately. Now, maybe there will be a little bit of surplus. It will be a while until a robot can fix your pipes.
Absolutely.
So we need to just not worry too quickly about everything. That's what I say. Keep a cool head, and use, if we want to maintain our nice way of living, especially that we have in Finland here. I think we need to not try to stick to a past that is slipping out of our hands, but more like an example. I love the example of 𝐓𝐚𝐿 in Espoo, where the Aalto University, where science and development and startups and public funding and support and bigger companies come together, it creates an innovation hub where we create new products and services that are meant for export, that are creating well-paying jobs, and every euro that is spent by the economy on something has always an accelerator. Like money that's spent by the government has an accelerator too, but it's much smaller. So economic activity it creates leads to more economic activity. And I think we should focus on ourselves and see what we're good at and support that growth, because it's like 𝐓𝐚𝐿 example, it creates so much dynamic that we can just do new things and also use this, embrace the change instead of fighting it, embrace the change and see how can we use AI for something useful. Example, Acouspin. We are going to take the data of our production into a machine learning software, so we can use the temperature, the humidity, the polymer level, anything we get from the production side of nanofibers, and feed them in the system to improve the outputs and change the parameters on the go. This way we can save on chemical waste, we can reduce electricity use, we can make it more efficient to actually manufacture these fibers also in high labor cost countries. So we can take all this to our advantage. And that's my whole philosophy all along. Just embrace change. Don't fight it. Take it and see, okay, what do we do now?
Absolutely. I think this example with AI, it's something eternal. I think it's in a way in a human nature to question progress sometimes. I'm just thinking of those stories from 100 years ago when people were like seeing first washing machines and thinking, like, what am I going to do all day with all the time I get when all my laundry is done by the washing machine? In the future, all the jobs will be just pressing one button. I remember this episode of Flintstones in Space. I can't remember the name of the cartoon, where the guy comes back home and says, honey, I'm so tired, I pressed the same button 3 times today. So that's how people saw the future back then, I think, maybe even 50, 60 years ago. But I think you're absolutely right that all of these developments of technology are just tools that are going to help us be better, be more productive, like Google, like Wikipedia, like any LLM you take. We should not forget how to think ourselves as humans, because it is the essential foundation of everything. And we leverage all these tools to be better, to create. And I think if we just take all the existing input, put it into the LLMs and ask them to create stuff, who is going to come up with new stuff? Well, we have to keep the creative flow going in that sense. That's what I believe in.
Exactly, absolutely. And as you mentioned, the progress, washing machines. I mean, we had times when people had horses and you had horse poop all over the streets, and then it would rain in November and it would all mix. And then people didn't want to have cars because horses were so much better, until they realized they don't have to take care of their cars even when they don't use them. You still have to feed your horse when it's not used. And now we're at the point where we feel like, why should I have a car if I could have a self-driving car sharing service, and I would just order a car when I need it to go to the supermarket, and instead of parking it, it would just continue. And when it's empty, it's going like this iRobot vacuum. It goes to a charging machine and charges itself electrically. And then when you come out of the supermarket, you just click and get your next one. It could be much more efficient model in terms of your money. It's a subscription to a car ride. We could take all these parking spaces away and make it green spaces or living spaces as we're moving more and more into cities. And we could embrace self-driving cars with electric vehicles and apps together to create actually a better life in the cities with less traffic, less looking for parking, less pollution, and just go with it and embrace it and make the coolest things out of it. One example that I just read about here in Finland is the work between Microsoft and Fortum. So we are seeing that AI is big on the rise, and it requires a lot of energy. So now what they're trying to do is use the data center that creates all this excess energy and feed it into the heating system. So
yeah, I saw something like that.
Yeah, no, this is exactly the way I should do it. Like, we're creating excess heat. Why don't we use it and fill the pumps with it? And all of a sudden, we can embrace AI and climate change at the same time.
Absolutely.
It's fantastic. And so those things, and that's why we have more problems probably in the world than we've ever known before, but we also have a lot more tools to fight them.
Definitely. And I think that kind of also reminds me of the systemic thinking approach that I discussed a lot last year with a lot of people. And everything what we do, anything we do, we have to look at holistically and how this works together with other systems. And because our world is the system, and obviously if you solve one problem in isolation, it is not exactly the best way to go about it.
I think that's now combining the complexity of economic systems and politics. I think that's one problem we face, that we have so many long-lasting agreements and contracts with everything, whether it be electricity supply or something else, that politics is very difficult to understand sometimes, why certain things have to be a certain way. And then the far right, left and right, they come with easy messages that are sometimes complete lies or half-truths, and they're just easy to digest. And the middle of the politics come in and try to explain everything. And I don't think that necessarily works, because you don't want to be a teacher like, no, let me explain you how it's done, because there's this and that rule. People are like, oh, but I want change. And I think we need to change the way we deliver our messages. It doesn't mean we have to use that populist language. We don't have to be lying through our teeth all day long so that the fact checkers can't keep up with us, like Elon Musk is doing, or Donald Trump, where you can't keep up with showing that how much there's coming out. And we just probably also have to learn to ignore that and find our own way to communicate in a simple way why what we're doing is actually the longer lasting way. And I also really truly believe, when I was younger, I wanted quick change on things. I sometimes still want quick change. I mean, I'm a startup entrepreneur.
Of course.
But when I think about society and politics, it would be extremely dangerous for the togetherness of people if one election win makes it possible to change everything, as we're looking across the pond on how one person can throw a whole country and potentially the world into such a chaos. Like, it's good that not everything can be just turned upside down, that there's always this zero-sum game. One wins everything, the other one loses everything, and when the elections next time we turn it around, then basically we're just not going anywhere anymore.
Just
we're
going in circles.
Changing back to the old status quo, and in the end we all lose. And so it's good that also governments change. Even that my political opponents get to go into the government sometimes, because there's always some critical mass in the middle where we agree with. As an example, Germany had elections in February. I was watching the last debate before the elections, and it was really painful to watch it. But when I looked at it without colors and without prejudice, there was among almost all parties enough common ground that if you take that away for a moment, we're not so far away from each other. And if we stop this polarization, like argue, to the last thing, but take out this polarization, talk like normal people, then you can get a lot more done than just like demonizing of the other side.
Absolutely. I do believe in communication. Throughout my entire career, I think my task number one has been to communicate. And it just doesn't only apply to workplace, it applies to everything. So, very good message. Max, we have limited amount of time for this recording today. We talked about quite many different things. Is there anything that you would like to still mention today? Some message to our viewers, listeners, something about your maybe agenda points that you are passionate about, maybe something like a words of advice to international talent, anything that comes to mind that we didn't discuss that you would like to share with the world today?
Well, Walt Disney said, if you can dream it, you can do it. I think people should never stop believing in their own capabilities. And the most important thing is, when you're going through difficult times, is to just keep going and find yourself the right peers. It's good to have a reason to get up and get out of the house. The first time I was working from home as an expat, it was years and years before the pandemic, but people know that probably from the pandemic, is when you're in your pajamas at work and you go take a shower at 5 o'clock to go to the supermarket. It doesn't create dynamic. I used to then just, even in moments when I had either was working from home or didn't have a job, I would get up in the morning, I shower, I shave, I iron a shirt, and I pretend like I'm going to an office, even though I'd go sit at my computer looking for a job. Have things in the day where you have to get to. It doesn't have to be much. Don't fill up your agenda, but have this feeling that you have an agenda. You have things to go to. It really helps to have the structure in life, and I also think it makes sense to have a little bucket list. I had a bucket list like 15 years ago or so, and last year when I was trying to figure out what do I do when I'm a grown-up,
like we all do. Sometimes to revisit that.
All the things that I had planned for myself, like back then, and what have I accomplished. I made a spreadsheet of professional, personal, family, food and drinks, and travel, things that I care for. And in everything I had certain things like learn how to make sushi or travel to somewhere. And I noticed that on my wish list that I wanted to do, from getting a black belt in a martial art, starting a company, writing a book, I've done a lot of things some of them were super easy, like learning how to make sushi, to writing a book took me 10 years. And I was like, wow, I just need a new list. And when I looked back at it, And it's good to do also that even if you never made a list, just look back and write down your accomplishments. I started to feel like I don't have to justify myself in front of anyone. I know what I'm good at, and that's what I'm doing. And I present myself to people like, here, I'm Max, I can do this. And just go with it. There will be people listening, and any international talent, anyone, or any talent, anyone should just look in what they're good at and be proud of it and go with that and not justify constantly like, yeah, I know my Finnish is not so good, but, or I've been working in this very hard. Like, just go with like, hey, I have 6 years experience in biochemistry in, I don't know, India, and I'm an expert in my field. Where can I go? And just go with that. Don't justify your being. You're being yourself, period.
I really like this message. And I also believe in bucket lists, and I also believe that it helps you visualize or kind of understand better yourself. What is it that you want to do? And then often we make those lists, at least I find myself sometimes making some lists, then forgetting about them, then some years later looking at them by accident and realizing that most of the things I actually wrote down I have done. Without even kind of consciously working towards that. Just, because I kind of somehow placed it on the back of my mind, it happened, and well, now I need a new one. So definitely good to know what you want yourself.
Actually, it helps you to figure that out. When I first wrote down what I want to do within the next 10 years or in my life, you start to make like a mind map of yourself. Who are you? What are you interested in? I realized, I love traveling, I love food, I love to do crazy things and challenge myself, and other people will realize, they are maybe in the wrong profession or they're doing the wrong thing. Maybe, you always thought you want to do one thing, and then all of a sudden on your bucket list, you find like 40 other things. It tells you a lot about yourself. It's really good exercise to do. It's like therapeutic almost.
100%. We didn't talk about your book, The Career Chess. We have to talk about it just briefly. What's the number one advice from the book? Buy the book.
Well, the number one advice from the book, it wasn't really ready, and it's never ready, but it was the point was that I just got to get it out. Otherwise, I will continuously working on it. The motivation started out of this frustration I had as an early professional when I thought, when the world has told me, if you learn hard and you work hard, eventually you will be successful in a career. And then I was encountered with a boss in my life very early on who was neither working hard nor was he very smart. And I was wondering, how did that happen?
Hope he's not watching.
And I realized that not everything is rational, especially in business. It's actually very irrational. And as an economist, my favorite discipline is game theory. And there's this idea that all human interaction is somehow a game. People play by certain rules, and you need to understand these rules and then play by that. And so I tried to codify that into like a handbook on how to, become successful. Then I came to the idea, well, why does it even matter to be successful? Who says that that's what we have to be? And so I went back from into philosophy and all kinds of different disciplines, and I'm covering in this book a lot of interesting topics, let's say from diplomacy to game theory to philosophy. And in the end, it's the happiness that we have to strive for, and our career is part of that, because we spend 8 hours at work, 8 hours in free time, and 8 hours sleeping, more or less. So half of our awake time is being spent at work. And I don't believe in this work-life balance thing. There's only one balance in life. If you can't go to a job you hate just to pay for the good things you like, you're just going to be miserable. So it's important to figure out what you want to do, and then next make the plan, and not, I need to make career and then I can pay for things. So the essence of the book is trying to open up some windows and some ideas of thinking that anyone can use in their own life, on how to approach things and how to like find their own happiness. And that was my, as ever, all the time. I try to inspire other people to believe in themselves and try something and not take everything as people tell you.
I feel very inspired with this message, Max. I appreciate you sharing a lot of inspiring things today. And I definitely can say that learning about game theory is a good idea. I had a very thin book I read a while ago, and one thing I remember from that book is the concept called the game of chicken. And that is something that I applied many times. And just knowing that one concept, I think it is a lot. It helps. And I recommend everyone to learn a little bit about game theory. And I think general curiosity, it helps. When you have general knowledge of many things in the world, you understand the system a little bit better. And what you have described now when you described career chess, I think it's about building a sustainable system for yourself as a professional, which works for you. Because it is not about work-life balance, I agree. Like I enjoy doing many different things, and I don't want to separate the boring things that just pay the bills with the fun things that I spend my other time doing. I think it can all be fun, and it doesn't have to be strictly separated in the middle.
That's exactly right. I think it was George Orwell who said, be yourself, everyone else is taken.
Exactly. That's a brilliant message, Max. Thank you so much for coming to Talent Sorcery today. It was a great pleasure talking to you. Beautiful, beautiful sunny day here in Helsinki. We're so fortunate and lucky. I wish you good luck, and thank you for sharing your wisdom.
Thank you, Andrew. Always a pleasure with you.